sacrifices that you make every single day. And I just want to let you know that you're always going to have a president and an administration who's got your back the way you've got the backs of the people in New York over these last many years. So God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And with that, I'm going to try some of that food. All right? Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
You've been listening to President Obama making his remarks there at Ground Zero. Of course, a fitting backdrop being a New York City fire truck, given how many of New York's bravest were lost on that day almost 10 years ago. Let's bring in Bob.
As Americans still revel in the announcement of the killing of Osama bin Laden, fears of blowback are starting to come to life. I'm not passing any judgment on bin Laden himself, since he's certainly a bad dude, if not the big bad dude that our government has made him out to be. In fact, the FBI never even listed 9/11 on its bin Laden webpage because, according to Rex Toom, chief of investigative publicity for the FBI, quote, the reason why 9/11 is not mentioned on Osama bin Laden's most wanted page is because the FBI has no hard evidence connecting bin Laden to 9/11. But even if bin Laden is the devil, should we have just let him go?
And go he should if he were the devil himself until he broke the law.
But if you were a president with no regard for the rule of law, you could just send troops into a foreign country and kill someone without a trial. You could ignore the Constitution. You could ignore the FBI and the Justice Department. You could stand against all that which we hold dear in America to chase down the devil. You could cut down every law in America. But that begs a question for our dear leader.
And when the last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper, the laws all being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's laws, not God's, and if you cut them down, and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then?
President Obama, you have been responsible for more deaths than bin Laden could even hope to be responsible for. You have continued to wage illegal occupations in the Middle East, deployed troops for 5th and 6th combat tours without a declaration of war. You've invaded sovereign countries, and I'm not even getting into any of the many ways your domestic policy has violated the Constitution, to which we both swore an oath.
Yes, I give the devil benefit of law for my own safety's sake.
Now, I'm not saying we should have let bin Laden go by any stretch, but Mr. President, you had better hope there is some semblance of law left when you leave office, so your own presumptive guilt and extraordinary execution style is not turned on you. You have been intervening with kinetic military action in Libya for over a month now. It took less time to peacefully, relatively at least, depose Mubarak in Egypt. The policy of regime change by violence is an obvious failure. And today, citizens of Misrata in Libya are suffering because of this policy. The city was bombed heavily by Gaddafi's forces, but only because the intervening powers have created a force to resist political oppression with violence. You know why bigger governments intervene in situations like this? Under Gaddafi, they had a regime they could work with. It was okay if he oppressed his people because the oil kept flowing. When Gaddafi was not effective enough as a dictator to keep his people in place, foreign governments had to rush in to assist the rebels, not because they care about human rights or freedom. I mean, look at our record here at home in the United States. But because they want to ensure that the next regime to come to power will work with them. If they allowed the revolution in Libya to happen on its own accord, by relatively peaceful means, by popular protests, as we've seen in Egypt and other countries in the Middle East, Gaddafi would be out by now. Less blood would be shed. And the new leaders would have no debt to anyone but the people of Libya. What does that say about this TV show? You'll have to figure that out for yourself. Meanwhile, blowback from Obama's assassination of bin Laden seems to be much better understood where it's happening, in Pakistan, where hundreds marched in the streets to mourn bin Laden. The professionally printed signs there read, "Assassination of one Osama will produce many Osama in future." If Obama was hoping to stir up the youth vote that helped him get elected, he may have forgotten one little important detail. 9/11 was almost 10 years ago, and most teenagers today don't even know who bin Laden is. According to Yahoo, 66% of the searches for the question, who is Osama bin Laden, this Sunday following the president's announcement, were from teenagers aged 13 to 17.